Have you ever wondered what it's like to own your own business? Be your own boss? Welcome to Season 7 of Business Mentorship, Keepin It Real, where we meet with corporate leaders who have taken the leap to business owner and join us as part of the Share Your Stories Online series. Hello, I'm Trish Tonak, and today we're going to meet a small business owner, celebrate their great idea, and introduce you to the person behind the logo. We invite you to sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hello and welcome to the show. Our guest joins us from Jacksonville, Florida. Reden Dionisio is the founder of Genuine's Coaching and Consulting. He works with leaders and parentpreneurs through his trademarked programs, Impact Brief and the Intentional Leadership Blueprint, by uncovering hidden revenue and strengthening operational resilience. Reden is going to share his story on entrepreneurship and give us a behind-the-scenes look into the life of a small business owner. I'd like to welcome and introduce everyone to Reden.
Hi, Trish. Thank you for having me.
You know what? It's such a pleasure because I loved in the story that you shared, you talk about being the profit coach. And one of the things that you mentioned in your bio is that you're actually the intentionality coach, a word that you actually use throughout your marketing in your business. So tell us a little bit about what is the intentionality coach? What does that mean?
Yeah, thanks for that question. For me, Trish, intentionality and being intentional, whether you're a leader, a business owner, I think for me that means, making your decisions that are aligned with your core values instead of just reacting to the noise that's out there, instead of reacting to the pressure that you might be having. But yeah, just whenever you make your decisions as a leader or as a business owner, ensuring that, hey, first, does this align with my values? And just go from there.
You know, I love the fact that you have trademarked two specific programs. And, I know from speaking with other business owners around the world that it's not for the faint of heart getting a trademark, right? Like it takes a lot of resilience and a lot of patience. So perhaps you can share a little bit with us about why you decided to trademark the Impact Brief and the Intentional Leadership Blueprint.
I mean, for me, especially with the advancement of technology and AI, I think it's important to protect, what's yours and also, what you've, as a coach, as a consultant, protect your IP, your
Right.
intellectual property, right?
Sure.
And,
Yeah.
the impact brief that actually, my background is I spent 21 years in the military. I just retired last year. And so, a lot of the coaching and the program that I have come from my experience in the military. And so I've kind of helped develop that and kind of, just created uh, my own brief, my own program.
I think that the thing that's really important and something that you've shared with our audience is that you've created something that's uniquely yours based on your life experience and your
Mhm.
previous role in business, correct?
That's right. That's right.
And I think it's really important for folks to remember that, when you create something that's unique and you're put your heart and soul into it, clearly it's had an impact on you in your life.
For sure. For sure.
So give us a little bit of an indication as to, so you mentioned you've been in the military, you retired last year. What made you decide to take the leap into entrepreneurship? Because, a lot of folks, when they hear the word retirement, think of pina coladas on the beach, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still at an age where definitely I am not at that point where I can just have pina coladas at the beach. I still want to, for me, it was just finding my next mission,
Right.
my next purpose. And so, as a leader in the military, as I've, gone through the ranks, um, I've always been involved and with my people. as far as like mentoring, coaching. And so it was kind of, for me at least, the transition to what I'm doing now
Right.
is not as different as to what I was doing in the latter years in my military career, where I'm
Mhm.
mentoring and coaching people. And so I've enjoyed that. Just knowing and seeing the transformation from when you first met this person to where they are now.
Right.
Uh, as a coach, for me, that's the ultimate satisfaction. It's just you played a small, just a small part in that transformation. So,
Yeah, for sure. Now, you use the word parentpreneurs. Now, I have to say, when I read your information, I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. I've never heard that word before. So, give us a little bit of an insight as to why you feel that leaders and parentpreneurs are part of your target market.
yeah, when I use that that term. I don't know where I heard that from, but it just came up and I'm a parent. I'm also an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
And so for me, a lot of the things that I've kind of experienced in my short time as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, um, I'm sure there's other parents who are in similar situation.
Mhm.
They're raising a young family and they're business owners. And so I wanted to relate to that specific audience and kind of just share my journey as well, right? Because just to let them know, hey, you're not alone. I do it, there's other people who are experiencing these things, it could be, burnout, overwhelm, things of that nature,
Yeah.
especially if you're a business owner and you're basically wearing all the hats, right? So there's a lot that goes into that. So yeah, I basically just wanted to share my experience and my journey as well with those people.
Now, I have to say, I think you're a bit of a marketing genius because when I was taking a look at your website and when I was reading your story, you have some amazing catchphrases. And I'm going to use one of them that is leadership without the fluff, clarity without confusion. Those are really powerful words that definitely get your attention. Have you
Yeah.
always had an inclination to the written word and be able to come up with these really amazing phrases?
I think it just goes back to, as a coach and consultant, um, you you don't know everything, but there's other people that are out there that have that experience.
Mhm.
And I think as a coach and a consultant, you should be proactive in seeking those guidance, right? And seeking those mentorship and coaching yourself. Because if you don't have a coach yourself, then it's for me, that's kind of like hypocritical, right?
Well, you kind
Um,
of have to walk the walk and talk the talk,
for
right?
sure, for sure. And so, I've invested in myself, I've invested in my business in seeking those guidance and those mentorships. And so I'm glad it's paid off. So
Yeah, I mean, it really resonates when you read through the information that you provide. Because let's face it, everybody goes to social or
mhm.
everybody does the Google search online to see, well, who you are. What are you about? What can you share with me that's going to help in my specific journey? So I must admit, as a marketing person, I certainly found that the phrases that you used really resonated with me because I especially loved this whole idea about leadership without the fluff. Give us a little bit of an insight as to how that has transcended from your past life into your previous life, because without the fluff really, really has a lot of meaning.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mentioned my military background and 21 years you pick up a few things, right? I'm big on systems. Um, I'm big on policies and instructions and things of that nature. And so that kind of carried over as into what I'm doing now is in coaching.
Mhm.
Um, I find that there's a lot of motivational speaking and just more a lot of it is just fluff, right? It's like, yes, motivate people, right? But motivation can only take you so
You
far,
have to take
right?
action at some point,
Right. You,
right?
you have to take action. And I think that's where people kind of fall apart is,
Right.
they get motivated in doing things. And it's like when the motivation is not there, well, what can you rely on? And for me, the structure that I've kind of learned in the military has helped me create my, the impact brief and my program, and to ensure that it's not just motivation, but also discipline to take action, right? So
And a framework, right? A
for
framework that you
sure.
can fall back on because, we are very visual learners for most of us. So,
Yes.
when we're falling off the rails, so to speak, to have something to go back to refer to, besides just our notes. That's why I love the word blueprint, because clearly you're giving people the visual as well as the tools to be able to get to that next level of success.
Yes, for sure. And, for me, it's just about simplifying things, right?
Right.
Um, because all know there's so much information out there, right?
Mhm.
You can YouTube, Google things now. It's how to
Yeah,
do
for
things.
sure.
Most leaders, most entrepreneurs, we don't need more information. We need
That's
more,
so true.
we just need more clarity.
Right.
And so from there, take a step
Yeah.
forward.
Now you're writing a book, so and it's called Intentional Impact. When does that hit the airwaves and the bookstores and all of that on your website so that folks can buy it?
I appreciate you for asking that. Yeah, so for right now, the title is Intentional Impact, and that could change. But the goal is fall this year. So I'm
Okay.
looking at October, November timeframe for that to come out to be published. So
Tell us a little bit about that journey because, having been an author and written two books myself, they were two very different experiences. One took me a number of years to write. I left it on the
yeah,
shelf, came back to it, took a look at it. The other one I had written, found the collaborative partners, and was published within 12 months. So two totally different experiences. No right or wrong there, right? Because it all
right.
depends on what's happening in life. Give our viewing and listening audience a little bit of a background into writing of the book, because I mean, that's a process, right?
For sure, for sure. For me, I've always kind of had that on my vision board, being a published author. And so once like I mentioned, I retired from the military last year. I kind of had this idea in mind already of what I wanted to write, involving the framework that you just mentioned, the impact brief. And so it wasn't until I did retire where I kind of started putting things into action.
Right.
I mentioned, I've invested in my coaching and in myself. And
Mhm.
so by doing that, around November, December last year, I really started putting things into Word doc and writing things down. And so right now it's you know, talking to some mentors and some coaches as far as like aligning my coaching with what I want to provide in the book. And
Mhm.
so yeah, looking forward to hopefully by this fall, November timeframe.
How do you find the time to write? Because that's one of the biggest obstacles, right? You're running a business. You mentioned that you have a busy family. So, life happens. It's not like you're sitting in isolation as a single individual with nothing to do, in the basement of your house writing the book. It
Right.
doesn't actually work that way. Is there a specific time of day that's best for you, or do you get an idea or a thought and then you write down a note and then you take it to the computer or Word doc and start to write?
Well, Trish, I have my plan, but I have two daughters who are 7 and 5, and so they don't
They
care
have
about
their own plan.
they have their own plan. And so I wish I could say yes, I have this time I write and this time family
Yeah,
time, but really it just
it
each
organically
day
happens,
each
right?
day is very depending on what my kids want,
Right.
and I'm on their schedule.
Sure,
I'm on
sure.
their schedule. But what's helped me is a few years ago, I've actually started being more intentional in journaling.
Okay, yeah.
And so
That's how I wrote my first book.
right. And so I've kind of like just picking up stories and things that
Right,
I've kind of learned from each day.
right.
I have it in my Google sheet, and it's allowed me to kind of like reflect, right? And kind of
Hmm.
like, okay, what can I use and
Hmm.
implement in my book that can provide some value to some people? So I think for me, like that journaling and just kind of like reflecting back on some of the things that I've experienced in the past has helped me more, like I mentioned, being more intentional and making sure that I put this book out
It
for this
collects your
fall.
thoughts, right?
Yes,
It
yes,
it gives you you can start to see the thread of symmetry between the stories and what you want the final words to look like, right?
for sure, for sure. Yep.
Now, you've mentioned 97% of the stories that we share on this platform are from corporate leaders who have transitioned to business owner. So, Give us an idea as to the skills that you felt that you used in your everyday life in the military that now are very beneficial as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just goes back to that structure,
Right.
that discipline mindset. I talk about alignment as well.
Mm-hmm.
What I found when I've been able to help other leaders and business owners, there's a lot of similarities as far as like what they're struggling with.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're under pressure. I mentioned burnout.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's they're operating in some sort of chaos in their business, right?
True.
And so for me, my message is taking intentional action, one intentional action each day, right? And
Okay.
so I think it just goes back to staying in alignment with who you are as a business owner and as a leader, and taking that first step as far as like what needs to happen today to be more successful.
And
Because
it's the baby steps, right?
yes, yes, for sure. We get lost in like comparison mode, and like we
Mhm.
scroll through social media and like see other business owners, leaders successful. It's like you can't compare yourself to somebody's story. You have to
Right.
take your own path. So
Yeah, for sure. Now, one of the things that I understand that you do, and clearly you do well, is uncovering hidden revenue. Now, I think as entrepreneurs, we get tunnel vision. We see one revenue stream and we go all in, right?
mhm.
But sometimes there are other paths that we've forgotten. How do you, if you were a business owner listening to our discussion today, and one of the things that you're very good at is uncovering hidden revenue, what would be one of the tips that you would ask someone to look at before reaching out to say to you, okay, Reden, how do you help me? I really do feel that I'm missing something. What do I look for? Is there anything that I can provide you with to get that conversation started?
Yeah, I think for business owners to kind of uncover those hidden revenues, I think it's important to know like your strengths and your well, I don't want to say maybe areas that you can improve on, right?
Sure.
Um, I think we tend to focus a lot on what, our strong suit and what we're good at.
Mm-hmm.
And we try to ignore the things that we're not, and just like, oh
Right.
yeah, I can push that to somebody else, right?
Sure.
But I think it's important to know where you need to improve, because if you don't face that reality and face that fact, then how are you going to kind of uncover those other revenues or move forward with your
Sure.
business?
Yeah, for sure. Now, so you're a relatively new entrepreneur, we'll say, you're sort of relatively new out of the gate. Give us an idea as to do you have a 3, 5 year plan in your own business? You mentioned that you have coaches and mentors and advisors and people that you look to. Do you have
Mhm.
something written down in terms of where you'd like to see your business go in the next few years?
Yeah, I think for me, short-term goal, I'm trying to move from more B2C to B2B. So
Okay.
working with organizations as far as like coming in, doing workshops, leadership series, things of that
Hmm.
nature.
Hmm.
And within 5 years, I'm hoping to get people on my team to take some of the programs and the frameworks that I've been able to implement in my coaching, and that way that can help more people, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, spread. It's like rinse and repeat, right? You
Hmm.
you find the people that have this share the same core values as yourself, and then multiply your message so that you can have a larger impact.
For
Really, is
sure.
what it right. Now, one of the things that we do in our guest blog is we talk about 3 words of advice. And, here's the word intentionality coming up again, but your 3 words are intentionality, alignment, and action. Why are they important to you and the work that you're doing?
Um, Intentionality, I think for me, right, if you're not intentional with each day, then as a business owner, that can cost you. As a leader, that can cost you,
For
right?
sure. Yeah.
Alignment, for me, success without alignment, it'll eventually create more resentment. Um, and taking action, you have to execute. You have to execute one aligned action daily. That way you can beat constant overthinking, because there's a lot of information, like I said before, right?
Hmm.
And as business owners, leaders, we don't need more information. We need more clarity.
Right.
Um, and so that's my message.
You know what? I think that's a really an important wrap up for us today to our conversation, because not only have you shared some of the things that work for you on your journey, but you're actually giving people some really creative tips of how they can be intentional with their own life. Because I think our definition for success is different, every
For sure.
individual's, right?
Yeah,
And so if you can provide them with some practical tools, and I love this idea about take one positive, actionable step a day. Because when you look at the end of the week, then you can actually have accomplished quite a bit,
for sure. For sure.
right?
Yeah, I mean, what's worked for me and maybe I can offer as like an advice is, you know, before you begin your day, I begin my next day the night before. I
Wow.
mentioned I do journal entries. I write down three things that will make tomorrow a success, right? And if you just write those three, it doesn't have to be anything crazy. It doesn't have to be anything like far over. It shouldn't be anything far
Yeah,
overreaching.
you're not going to change the world tomorrow.
You can't change the world in one day, you
That's
know?
right.
I think if you just, again, be intentional as far as like, what's that one small step that I can take tomorrow to make my day and my business a success? And so if you just do that, three three things, three actionable steps that you can take for tomorrow to make it a success. And like you said, at the end of the week, you're gonna look back and be like, oh wow. Because sometimes we feel like we're not doing things, right? We're not
Yeah,
moving
we're
in
not
the right
doing enough.
direction.
Yeah,
But if you actually write those things down and you actually do it and mark them off, you're going to look back at the end of the week. It was like, I really did a lot today. And
yeah.
sometimes we need that as leaders and as business owners because we're our own worst enemy,
Mhm.
you know? And so I think that helps.
Yeah, the positive reinforcement. That's a really wonderful visual, right? You write it
Yes, for sure.
down, then you tick it off, and then you've actually got some really powerful positive reinforcement at the end of the week.
Yep, yep. Your calendar really reveals your priorities. It reveals who you are by what you have in your calendar. So
I love that. Well, I'd like to really thank you for spending some time with me today and giving us some insight into how you're really creating intentionality for folks in everyday life. So thank you so much, Reden, for spending some time with us.
thank you, Trish. I appreciate it.
To our viewing and listening audience, I'd like to thank you for tuning in for this edition of Keeping It Real. And I'd like to send my personal thanks to all our sponsors and mentors for their ongoing support, and ask that you share and invite your friends and colleagues to subscribe to our show, Business Mentorship Keeping It Real, found on YouTube and your favorite podcast channel. Reden and I would like to thank you for joining us, and we look forward to meeting you next time when we meet another business owner and celebrate their great idea.